Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my.
I love it. So Luka Nation, we want to welcome you guys back to a very special guest episode today with someone that I think you guys might know, more than likely have interacted with, and is someone I admire from afar in the way that he goes about his business in the sports card hobby. So his name is Raymond Lee, but you guys might know him as Asian Cards on Instagram, and he runs an amazing group on
Which makes
Facebook.
no sense because Raymond is Portuguese. I mean, I'm looking at him
Actually
right
German.
now, I mean, yeah, see, so I
German.
don't know where you came up with that name.
So Raymond, I admire him from afar. Like I said, he does a great job of dabbling and really being an expert in quite a few different areas of the hobby. And I hope we get a chance to kind of cover all of those, from his new card supply business to his Facebook group to being kind of a Costco, so to speak, and using your words, of grading cards and then selling them at a slight discount. But where I want to start off from is, Raymond, you are a financial guy. That's your background, at least according to LinkedIn. And I'm curious, if someone came up to you and said, what's your 60-second State of the Union on what's happened in sports cards in the last 12 months? What would you say?
That's an interesting question. No one's really asked that before. I would say overall demand has just spiked for all sorts of cards across the spectrum at all price points. From we're kind of starting to see this less now, but from base cards, Devontae Graham, Kobe White, Luka, to the more expensive ones, to like higher end, GOAT cards like the Kobe Refractor, LeBron Refractor, Topps Chrome. Those cards, basically, I think demand has spiked across the board. You have fractional ownership, people entering in the market, consuming the higher end cards, and then collectors going for the cheaper stuff that they can buy themselves.
I love it. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I did a slight introduction there about you, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself and kind of how you see yourself positioning in the hobby, and just share a little bit more about kind of you and your business with our Luka Nation community.
Yeah, for sure. I think my business has always been around innovation. I think that one thing that I've always really liked doing ever since growing up is kind of thinking about new business ideas, exploring untackled corners of markets, and then kind of creating a plan to execute that. I mean, I think it kind of traces back to when I was a kid. I used to play this game called RuneScape when I was like, 8 years old, all the way until I was in middle school. And in that game, you could like buy and trade and sell, kind of like it was like a virtual stock market. You could buy out certain items, you could inflate the price of certain items, you could trade, and I really loved the aspect of that game. I'd play hours and hours a day. And I found that that aspect is very translatable to sports cards. You can kind of track your progress day over day. You can explore, innovate, do things that other people aren't doing. And I think relatively speaking, like this is still a pretty new market, and there's still a lot of opportunity for product creation, for software creation, for developing new business strategies. So yeah. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think innovation to me is super important.
So before we get on further, just I'm sure there are listeners out there who have dealt with you before. I've bought from you before myself, and I think Andrew has as well. For those of the few listeners who haven't, I mean, we're up into the 4 figures of listeners now, so there might be a few out there who who hear this in the first 24 hours who might not have dealt with you. Just take 2 seconds for us and let people know where they can find you. Talk about your Facebook group a little bit. Just kind of Asian Cards obviously is out there, but I know you're on Facebook. And maybe you can kind of get into that a little bit too, because I know that is one of the things you're most proud of, building your Facebook group up.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find the Asian Cards Facebook group just by typing in Asian Cards in the Facebook search bar. I really like Facebook because unlike Instagram, your account is really connected to your real name. So you kind of have the opportunity to talk with people online and meet them at shows. You can kind of recognize them when you see them in person. So that's kind of how I first got into cards. And Asian Cards Facebook group, I used to use it as kind of like my way of selling things, but I don't really do that anymore. Like I very rarely post sales in that group. So right now it just stands as a community of people who want to buy and sell mainly their slabs. You see a mix of modern cards, but there's also some older stuff in there. But yeah, it's just community for you to ask any questions of the hobby if you're new, or buy and sell stuff if that's what you're into as well. It's very multi-purpose.
It's where I've had most of my success. I've done most of my deals in the Asian Cards group. And I'm curious, it's always felt like maybe the safest, and it's just a feeling. What do you do to run that group so well? Like what is it with that Asian Cards community that's a little bit different from some of the bigger groups out there?
Yeah, I think it's being selective about who I let into the group. I think there's a lot of very large groups out there with 10, 20, 30K people who basically let everyone in. And when looking to approve people who enter, I'm very careful about making sure that it's not a new Facebook account. If it's someone new entering the hobby, like I would love for them to join, but just make sure it's not like a new account that was created yesterday with a fake profile. We also have moderating team. So if and they're pretty active on Sports Card Scammers Exposed, which is like also a Facebook group that basically pinpoints scammers. So if there's ever bad reports of people, we'll remove them instantly.
I love it. And I don't want to kind of spill the beans on your business model, but the way you and I interacted is, I think it was early last year, maybe March, April, May. And I loved your business model. And I don't know if you're still doing it because, in the hobby, you constantly have to evolve. But I think what you were doing really well, Ray, is you were buying up tons and tons of base cards, sending them into PSA to get kind of quick graded express, or somehow you were getting them back really quickly. And what you were doing really well is you were selling them before the cards even returned at a discount. And I love that model. I think you even called yourself the Costco of sports cards. And I was like, this guy's brilliant. This guy is brilliant. How did that start?
Yeah. So I think for me, what I really like about grading cards is kind of the gambling aspect of it, right? You never know what you're going to get. And then when the grades come out, it's always, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But, it's kind of good to, always see that really expensive card get a 10, right? So I think there's kind of the gambling component to it, which I really like. I did try to pre-sell cards sometime maybe like 2 months ago for basically an express order that I had, just kind of like as an experiment. Like I like to try new things, kind of see if there are ways that I can fine tune my business. And we're basically pre-selling cards at around 80 to 90% comps, and then delivering them about a month later. So kind of like, a futures contract. You buy something right now and then guarantee delivery, 1 month out. For me, like, I think personally, I've tried to tone that down a little bit, just because there have, I think I just have too many cards at home. So it's kind of, to have to parse everything out to kind of ship to 5 different people. It's kind of it's a lot of work.
It definitely is. I think you had a secret for it. I mean, I never heard the Costco for cards thing. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. But I can tell you just from my own dealings, I'd see the story pop up, or somebody would message me because they knew I was, collecting Devontae Graham and buying a bunch of them. And say, oh, look, reach out to this guy. And, what struck me, and it's a good lesson for, the folks in the hobby looking to find a place. Everybody's going to be getting PSA cards back eventually. It might be 2023, but everybody who's in this has cards at PSA right now, right? I mean, like, that's just the deal, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully you have all 10s. But what was great about what Ray was doing, what Asian Cards was doing, is they were posting the cards, and they were cards that were, let's just say at the time eBay was $100 to $105, right? That was basically the comp, 100-ish, maybe selling for a couple bucks more. And he would post, blowing these out, I have 20 of them, $90 each. Okay, so 10% off, maybe 12% off, whatever it may be. And so basically losing what eBay, if he sold them on eBay, it's exactly going to be get rid of the eBay stuff, it's going to be friends and family, the whole deal. So you probably got a little bit less than you would have had you sold it on eBay and dealt with that whole deal, but right in the same wheelhouse. But by doing that and passing on that small savings, to the buyer, because they now don't have to pay 100 to 105 on eBay, the cards just went. I remember reaching out on one lot and saying, "Oh my God, I'll take these," and you're like, "They're gone." And it's just minutes. They go on in the story and they're gone. And especially when there's such a rabid fan base out there, as a seller, especially if you're looking to churn your inventory, you're looking to get out of some of the stuff you have and have free flow of cash and move it in. Sometimes taking 1 or 2% less than what you would have gotten on eBay allows you to move that stuff so much faster. And that was what struck me about you, because literally I reach out and be like, "Okay, I want those," and you're like, "Sorry, it's gone." And I'm sure other people have done that too. And you didn't change your model, right? You didn't say, "Shit, look at these people who are reaching out to me. The card's sold in 5 minutes. I guess if I tried to squeeze another $1 or $2 out of it and sold it for 95, maybe I would have got that." But you know what? You probably wouldn't have sold it as quickly. You know what I mean? You probably wouldn't be gone. It's like an immediate thing. You strike while the iron's hot. And to me, and maybe you can speak to this because it kind of goes with this whole Costco of cards thing, that's important, right? Being able to turn over your inventory, being able to, liquidate these things and move on to the next one and put more money into more cards and more grading and moving on to something else. That's important, even if you don't squeeze every bit of juice out of the fruit,
Exactly. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I think probably the more important part is what I've learned over the years of doing this is it's more important to build relationships in the long run rather than kind of get the extra 5 to 10% on a sale. And I think, paying fairly goes a long way in that, even from a complete selfish perspective, right? If you pay fairly, people will come to you with inventory proactively in the future. And that's, more opportunity to do future deals. And that's something they want as well. Whereas, I used to nickel and dime people. I used to offer people 50% of comps, and then people get really mad, but 1 in 10 would work. So I'd be really happy. But I found that in the long run, that wasn't sustainable just because with the volume that we were doing, it was very hard to keep track of everything. And then also negotiations got very tiring if you're kind of going back and forth over, $10, $20. And then I guess most importantly, it's people didn't really want to work with me in the long run because, I would just lowball the hell out of people. And then they didn't really feel good about doing that transaction.
There's a huge lesson to be learned here, guys, and Luka Nation. If you don't take anything else out of this, besides obviously get on the Asian Cards Facebook group. I'm gonna do it myself. I might have to sign up for Facebook. I'll be that new guy. You're gonna see a weird account. I think I'm too young for Facebook. Facebook's for grandparents looking at pictures of their grandkids.
So scroll real slow.
I'm too young for Facebook. I gotta age myself a little bit to get on there. But I'll sign up. But you guys should sign up too. But in addition to that, the hobby community that Ray was just talking about, if you really want to take it down to its most basic terms, right? As a lawyer, there's a V in the middle between plaintiff and defendant, right? But you still have to be civil, right? Because there's a lawyer on the other side of that V. There's an opponent on the other side of there. And if you're not civil, the next time you are facing that person in court, they're not going to do you any favors. They're not going to give you that adjournment. They're not going to be civil to you. They're going to try to ram it down your throat, right? So even though you might be on opposite sides of a deal, right, you have to be civil. You have to be fair. You have to put yourself in the position of the other side of that V. It's the same thing in these buys and sales. You might be a buyer this time. You'll be a seller next time, vice versa. And I can tell you just from personal experience without revealing the cards, the biggest sale I made last year to a buyer, the biggest individual sale I made to a buyer was a fair transaction. And I look at it now and I say, wow, that guy made a nice profit on a lot of these cards. But at the time, it was a fair transaction. I didn't try to squeeze every dollar out of it that I could. 2 months later, the person that I sold to became a seller to me, not of the same cards, but of different cards that he was able to come into possession of. And I wound up being the buyer. And he came back to me and said, look, we had such a good transaction that you're the first person I'm thinking of. I'm going to get 2 of this card. I'd love to be able to, put you in one. You have the money for it based on our sale. So that's another reason why I come to you. And, I'd love to, be in a position to get you this card because I liked our deal that much. And I will tell you, it is the card in my possession that is worth the most.
Yep.
So just right there this year, my biggest sale became my biggest buy. And, I guess, if I was trying to squeeze every dollar out of the guy and left him with a bad taste in his mouth, he probably wouldn't have called me. He would have went on to the next name in his Rolodex to sell that card.
He may have even kept that card for himself. God knows he had it. But I knew this was going to be a great episode before having Ray on. And Ray, I don't know if you know the format of our podcast, but we lead with value. Every single day, we try to bring Luka Nation. It's a daily show. And every single day, we try to bring Luka Nation value. You know, how did we start off? What strategies can they implement so that they could put money in their own pockets? And I'm curious, you know, you come from a financial background. How did you get into sports cards? What's the Raymond Lee origin story of you kind of first starting in the hobby?
Yeah, for sure. Interesting question. So yeah, I used to grow up. I grew up in China. I went to international school there. And when I was in kindergarten, first grade, Pokemon was really, really big. Everyone was really into Pokemon, and we would trade Pokemon cards. And we played the Pokemon games. Started with Game Boy Color, Pokemon TCG on the Game Boy, and then went to Leaf Green, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire. Not in that order, but really got into Pokemon. And just kind of let it sit on the back burner for a little bit. And then a couple years ago, I was just reading stuff online and just read about sports cards. I guess during the summers in college, I would always be interested in reading about new business ideas. Like I've tried a lot of things. I've tried drop shipping, basically any like YouTube guru type strategy that you've seen online, I've tried. So over the summer would just kind of be when I wasn't in school, it would just be time to explore new business ideas. And every night I'd sit down for a couple hours and just come with a list of ideas, read on Reddit, listening to some YouTube videos when I'm like out on a walk, just to kind of know a little bit more day by day. So that's kind of how I got into sports cards, and then went to the National in 2019, and met a lot of really, really cool people there. Went to Card Collectors 2's trade night, and that was awesome. Shout out. Yeah, it's gone to more shows since, and it's been awesome.
Card Collector is a legend in this space, but I love that you brought up that you went to international school in China. You grew up playing Pokemon, because Cage and I, we had a conversation around those lines this morning, and I use this word very intentionally, a massive amount of respect for China. China to me is kind of like Kawhi Leonard. They're one of the best in the game, but you never know what's going on. There's a point here, Cage. And I'm curious if Ray can shed a little spotlight onto how the Chinese market looks at sports cards and how they look at it. I got to laugh. At
least you're clearing it up, how China looks at sports cards. I thought you were going to throw over to Ray and be like, Ray, I want you to explain how China is like Kawhi. And I'm like, it makes sense. Go for it. Just run, because, you could do that.
It makes sense. China's like Kawhi.
Oh God.
Superstar. Okay. They put up huge numbers. They get better every year, but you have no idea what they're doing.
And there's no social media presence.
Am I wrong? So what does, Ray, if you could shed a little light, how does China look at Pokemon cards? Are they investing in Pokemon cards? And how do they look at sports cards, NBA cards, vintage? If you could just touch on that, it would be super, super helpful for our audience.
Yeah. I would say, first of all, Pokemon's not huge in China. I think it was mainly big among like the international school crowd, because we would follow American culture, read American books, go to America over the summers. So that that was kind of the deal with Pokemon. In terms of like the sports cards community in China, one really interesting thing is like there's a lot of focus on players that are probably not super popular in America. So for example, a lot of Chinese people like James Harden. Whereas, he's pretty popular, he's a very, very good player. And, I wouldn't say he's like, people hate him in the hobby, but, he's not as popular as say, other players. Mm-hmm. People in China also really like Allen Iverson, right? Whereas in America, you don't really see that level of hobby love. There's Allen Iverson super collectors out there. Marbury, big one. And I think the community is very like, there's not that many of them, but the ones that do collect sports cards are very, very deep into it. I'd also say that like box breaking culture is very big. And I think overall gambling culture is very, very strong in China. Like there are a lot of box breaks in Shanghai, Beijing, and even like smaller cities. people use this Chinese platform called QQ, which is basically like WeChat before WeChat, to communicate about cards. Yeah, I would say just gambling culture is very, very big there. Fun fact, so like it's pretty big thing in China is to buy like geodes, which are like, uncracked rocks, for huge sums of money, to crack them, and then see what's inside. So kind of translates into sports cards, right? You have something that you don't really know, it's cardboard box, and you can pull very expensive Zion Williamson card, like Luka card.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. I think Cage's mind is blown. He doesn't even know what to ask next. He's like, "What's a geode? Is a Zion
geode with a G?
Oh, geode.
Yeah, I'm not asking you what it is. I'm telling you what it is. Obviously, come on, geo, like Earth, like rock. Geo, like Geodude. You're a Pokemon guy. That was your favorite one. Remember Geodude? Remember?
It's like there's
exactly Geodude.
Yeah.
See, that was the one you got. Remember, you actually sold that one. You made a killing on that. You did really good on that Pokemon card.
I gave it away to Luka Nation.
Yeah, that was you rated that one. You got a 10. That's pretty good stuff. But listen, I learned that the Asian markets from right here are not all the same, right? I mean, Andrew and I were talking about Pokemon this morning. It was a conversation about Charizard PSA 10 first edition versus the Jordan PSA 10 Fleer, and which one's going to go up more this year, which one, the trajectory of both of them. And we brought the Asian markets into the discussion, and it's interesting. You can't just lump them all into one market. Obviously, Pokemon's huge in Japan, but maybe not as big in China. Is Jordan big in both? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. So I was on the Jordan side of that debate, but Andrew he's put his bet down on Pokemon this year. He thinks this is a year for Pokemon. I guess you can't really go against it. I mean, it's the 25th anniversary, and McDonald's are going to have it in their toys soon, so Happy Meal's going to have it. It's going to be everywhere this year.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know if you guys saw it, but Ken Golden's doing a Brock's break with Logan Paul, and a lot of people, a lot of Pokemon collectors are like, yeah, that's going to spike prices, which I'm sure it will.
What do you think about that, man? What do you think about the influx of celebrities and stuff into the hobby, the influencers, the people who are opening boxes, people doing box breaks, people publicizing their buys, from a Logan Paul down to Gary Vee talking about it, whoever it may be,
Yeah, I think on balance it's great. I mean, new eyes in the hobby is always great. I used to work full-time at a startup, and a lot of my coworkers, coworker that knew nothing about cards reached out to me one day over Slack and was like, "Hey, have you heard of this guy called Sports Card Investor?" And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." You have kind of like all these celebrities, all these mini businesses advertising people who know nothing about cards, or were into cards 20 years ago, but kind of stepped away from the hobby, and just being drawn back in. I think more eyes is always good.
You're looking at me, Cage?
Yeah, man. I'm waiting for you, man. I've been stealing Ray's time. I'm waiting for you. You always have the good questions. Do you want to talk to him about kombucha and like what goes in it, whether or not he drinks? Is that like a ginseng type of? I mean, where do you want to go next? Where do you want to go with Ray? Because this guy is a wealth of knowledge.
Well, there's two things. I am curious why Kobe is a god in China. Like they literally, this is what I've heard. I want to talk about Kobe in China, but I also want to talk about Ray's upcoming businesses that he just started and what he sees for the future of the hobby. So you could pick one of those three topics and run with it.
Let's talk about China.
Nice.
I love it. Is Kobe as godlike in China as they've advertised? Because I've heard that he's just absolutely revered in China.
Yeah, he's everywhere. I mean, people. I think overall, a lot of people like playing basketball, and with his shoes, they're everywhere. You go to China, there used to be ads everywhere. With Kobe, he used to go to China a lot. I remember he came to Shanghai one year, and a lot of my classmates went to meet him. Well, not to meet him, but to watch his exhibition game. So yeah, that's been, he's huge there. I'm sure there are a lot of super collectors of Kobe Bryant in China.
One of my favorite interviews was actually summer when Kobe went to China. He was running like a basketball camp there. And if you could just YouTube this Kobe interview in China. It's one of my favorite interviews. And he does this thing. He promises the camp a pair of shoes if the kid beats him in a suicide race. And the kid almost beats him, but he doesn't touch the line by an inch. And he, in only Kobe fashion, he's like, you got to touch the line. And he doesn't give the camp the shoes. But I'm curious, how does China view NBA Top Shot, crypto, NFT, digital moments? How do they view that?
Yeah, that's interesting. In terms of crypto, I'm not too sure. I actually haven't been back to China in about 2 years. But I'm sure there are a lot of crypto investors just because, cryptocurrency is a store of value. And especially in a place where, people are looking for alternative assets. Cryptocurrency is obviously going to be one of those options, as is sports cards, right? Like it's an investment vehicle in addition to something that people like because it's linked to a player that they have emotional attachment to. In terms of NBA Top Shot, I don't think it's reached there yet. I think very, very, very cool idea. And I think, kind of like touching upon our point earlier, there are a lot of people who are being drawn to the hobby because of this. Like there are people who know nothing about sports cards, kind of the collectibles market. And I've had friends who just messaged me about, have you heard of Top Shot? I actually heard about it for the first time, last month, pretty recent. So yeah, I don't think it's reached China yet, but I think Chinese culture is also it's very, people value security and things that they're very familiar with. So honestly, I think adoption of something like a virtual card or virtual moment would take some time. That's why you see a lot of Asian families invest in real estate, right? It's a very tangible asset that's cash flow generating that you can see that you can live in. In the same way, I think, sports cards are pretty attractive because, Kobe Bryant, it's numbered, you can kind of see, you can get the value of that very easily. It's a tangible asset. But I think for something more nebulous, like an NBA blockchain moment or NBA Top Shot, that might take some adoption.
I don't even think it's available there yet. I don't think they offered it there, but your point is 100% right, though. People are coming into it who would not otherwise have gotten into sports or cards. I mean, I'm on Discord talking about Top Shot, and people are telling me about something called a crypto kitty. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I don't even know what this thing is. I mean, I'm getting exposed to all of these, different blockchain lessons. And I was really resistant to all that stuff. I'll take $1. Give me a nice greenback, George Washington on it, and we're good. That's the only money I need. And Andrew is ready to jump down my throat and say, that's not worth anything. No, it's not, So, it's funny if it wasn't for sports.
We're on record, Cage. We're on record. We know who jumped down whose throat on the Bro Namath episode.
It's true. It's true. But I mean, look, it is what it is. I just think it's cool because there are so many, things that go in there. And it's a good segue, right? Because as the hobby grows into different things, we have, we talked to a bunch of people about this. I remember it's a quote from an interview Gary Vee gave, and we steal it every once in a while about how during the gold rush, the people who had the sustained wealth weren't the ones who were digging for gold. And trust me, plenty of those people made money. People who found gold made money. But the ones that made the sustained longevity of money were the people selling the supplies, people selling the pans and the pickaxes and the stuff they needed to go get the gold. Did you, did you dive into the supply world as well? Is that one of your avenues that you're trying to get into?
That makes sense in retrospect, actually. But I did not think of it using that frame of logic. But I can't steal it.
I mean, I know Gary didn't come up with it himself, but I attribute it to him because I remember hearing about it in one of his interviews. But I mean, it does make sense, right?
Yeah, that's funny. So I first stumbled into the supply world because of a personal problem I had. I would, back during coronavirus, when coronavirus first started, there was a very strong short supply of these card savers that people would submit to use to send into PSA. So initially it was kind of a personal thing. I wanted to basically have enough card savers for my own use. And I submit a lot of cards, so I just wanted to have a good stock supply. And then I had friends asking me where do you find these card savers? Where can you get them? So I sold them to my friends, and they're like, oh, these are pretty good. I think they're a little better than cardboard gold or the other cardboard gold ones, as well as other brand out there, because they're I think if you're inserting a lot of cards, sometimes your fingers will bleed. So a larger card saver is helpful because you can more easily insert the card, and it's ours are a little thinner, so you can insert the card easily and probably 50% faster than other card savers. So just kind of snowballed into more and more stuff, and then started designing the packaging, which took a lot of time, but that was eventually done. And then now we're on Amazon, so just trying to just scale little by little. The way I've approached it is just kind of think of it as a snowball, right? Kind of grab a ball of snow. At first, it's just clumps. There's no identifiable shape or anything. But then, as you kind of squeeze at it, as you mold it, it becomes smoother ball, and eventually you have something that's round.
Are you an entrepreneur by nature? Are you someone that as a kid was picking up projects? Because I feel like I see two Rays, and I'm cute. This is a question for myself. You went to Columbia Business School, right? And you correct me wrong. You worked in the financial world, but you also have this entrepreneurial bone. You're a quick start. So how do you view yourself?
Yeah. So I actually hated working in the corporate world. So I would say, that was definitely not a good fit for me. After graduating in 2017, I worked as a consultant for a year, hated that. Worked as an investment banker for a year, hated that. Worked at Bird, the scooter company. I actually really liked that job. But I think what I liked about that job were the entrepreneurial components of it. Testing out new products, new strategies, tracking the results of those new strategies. So yeah, I think I've always kind of had an aversion to just working at a company, and I've always wanted to do my own thing ever since I was young. Kind of tracing back. I think it kind of traced back to middle school. Like I said earlier, I used to. Maybe this is unrelatable if you guys haven't played this game, but I feel like RuneScape was really kind of the building blocks of this mindset.
What's the game called? Remind me.
RuneScape.
Rude's game?
RuneScape, run. It's spelled run escape, but it's pronounced RuneScape.
I love chatting with folks like Ray, because I do this almost every guest episode. It's just another way of finding success. You know what I mean? And here's somebody who has top level schooling. I mean, Columbia is about as good as it gets here, right? Business schooling, has the ability to work in finance, and says, you know what? Instead, I see a problem in the market. I see it's impossible to get card savers because of coronavirus, and I'm just going to make them. I'm going to sell them. I'm going to fill a void, and I'm going to do that. And I'm also going to scratch my gambler's itch, because I think at heart, all of us card collectors are a little bit of gamblers. I know Andrew doesn't want to be a gambler. He doesn't admit that he's a gambler. We all got a little bit of gambling in us. That's, it's part of the whole deal. But gambling, scratch the gambling itch by grading cards, selling them, making money that way. I mean, so it's really, I love these episodes because, obviously Ray's doing fine. I'm looking at him now. He's not doing this from, a beat up mattress on the street. He's out in LA, he's paying his bills, and he does not have to be working in that Wall Street job that he doesn't want. Which to me, guys, in addition to all the fun that we got about, this is a community, treat people the way you'd want to be treated because you might be on the other side of that deal. This is what Andrew really wants this whole podcast to be about, right? There is not one way to do this thing we call life, right? You don't have to go to college and come out and get a job and work for the man and be miserable and die like I'm doing. Right? Even if you got that Columbia education, you know what? Open your eyes and you see a problem, go fix it. And that's what Ray's doing. And I mean, it's an impressive thing. And I'm thankful for you coming on, because trust me, there are people out there listening saying, I got an idea. I think I can do this differently than what everybody's telling me I have to do it. And you did, and you're doing fine. So thank you.
If I could just jump in here, there's one kind of thread that weaves all the way through is, I think we don't, we understand that at some point in our life, we have to sell our time. But I think it's very disempowering to just have that as your only revenue stream. So if when you're working for a company, you're really selling your time. But that's just one revenue stream. You could sell card savers, you could sell cards, there's so many different ways to make money. And if you go through life only selling your time, I think it's a very frustrating route. So, Kate, I don't know if you agree with that opinion, if you're going to add to that, Ray.
No, of course I do. Of course I do. I mean, listen, Ray's living it, man. I mean, you go back to when you were in Columbia. If you turned around and told Columbia Ray, "Hey, by the way, when you graduate, you're not. This is what you're going to be selling: rigid plastic."
So that people can cut up at PSA.
yeah. So, but you're doing fine, man. I mean, if nothing else, folks should take that. You got an idea, run with it. It might work.
That's a great direction. I wanted to see, because Ray always has his eye on the next thing. And if you don't mind, I'm sure you're thinking of some ideas that you could implement in 2021, but if you don't mind sharing, what are some ideas that our thousands of listeners can go ahead and maybe implement and change their own lives? Is there something that you're seeing in the market that needs a fix?
Yeah, I think that I've actually been working this is kind of like my other side project in addition to the supplies, but optimizing braking, I think is a huge area of opportunity. My friend and I, we created a product that helps breakers ship cards that they pull. So basically, breaker logs into a website, creates a link, sends a link to participants in their break. They fill in the address. So the breaker does nothing. And then at the end of the breaker prints 8 or 9 labels all at once. I think optimizing braking in the shipping process as well as sorting cards, I think is huge. And I saw this on Instagram the other day, but there's, I think, a startup called Visor or something like that that recently got funding for doing exactly that, break streaming. So I definitely see that as a huge area of opportunity, especially like we mentioned earlier, a lot of celebrities, a lot of people entering the market, like that's kind of like their first exposure to sports cards, right? People aren't going to go out and just buy, it takes a lot of research to decide what to buy. But to enter a break, you're not buying anything, right? You're just buying an opportunity and you're buying the entertainment. So $50 spots in a break. It's not really committing. You're not really committing to that much. You're not even sure if you can get anything. I think in general, there's a lot of opportunity in Clubhouse. So one thing that I'm launching this week is a Clubhouse club, where, kind of like how if you go to your LCS, you just meet people, you go to a sports card show, you talk about cards all day. And then those conversations devolve into something that's not about cards, but even though you guys originally just met about sports cards, which I think is super awesome. Like some of my best friends today are people, I just met at a sports card show or sports card shop. So, I think Clubhouse is a huge area of opportunity. And I think that's one area that I want to expand in. I think, for me, I've also, my mind kind of like goes all over the place. I have like a lot of ideas. So also like personally, I've been looking into other ideas outside of sports cards. I think one really awesome thing that kind of comes with like building relationships with people in the hobby is a lot of people who are into sports cards are also very entrepreneurial minded. And as a result, they kind of have their own business that's completely different from sports cards that you can kind of learn about. For example, like, I know a lot of my friends, there's, sports bookies. They kind of run their own sports book. Some people are mortgage originators, people who want mortgages on their houses. I met some guy in Ohio who runs his physical poker room and his own slot machine room. Just learning a little bit about that, even if it's not just like, even if it's I don't intend on pursuing those, which I probably won't. It's always really cool to kind of hear about other people's ideas. You kind of have that awe factor of like, oh, I never knew this existed. I never knew people built their businesses this way.
So as you're growing these businesses, and someone's out there listening and maybe they're not a number one or number two, but there's someone that is entrepreneurial and wants to be part of what I think are startups that you're really creating. What is a need that you have, that someone listening might be like, oh, maybe I'll reach out to Ray and lend a hand, or maybe I'll reach out to Ray and offer to work for him. Is what needs do you have? What people are you looking for?
Yeah, I think for me, I think when I try to build my team, it's around covering blind spots that I know nothing about or things that I'm very bad at. And I think one thing that I'm bad at right now is marketing. Like I have no idea how ad campaigns work. I have no idea how ClickFunnels works, stuff like that. I've been trying to learn. I spend like maybe 30 minutes a day listening to YouTube videos and how people talk about these types of things. But this is something that people spend years perfecting. So yeah, I would say like on the advertising marketing side, I think in general, like the card community is not, I think other people probably had that same struggle. I think there can be a lot more being done in advertising in like more creative ways. For example, like the other day I saw Pole Kings, which I think always has really creative strategies for like marketing. He had like a billboard of join my brakes. These are the brakes that are gonna come up. Also, he hires people on Cameo, like famous people on Cameo, to advertise his brakes. I heard he was, don't quote me on this. I heard he was opening a like a physical storefront, to acquire product just to advertise people. So I think a lot can be done in terms of the marketing aspect. I know nothing about it, so I think it'd be really cool if I knew someone who actually knew something about it.
Cage, you know what Cameo is? We need to get you on there. You're a celeb. You know what Cameo is, Cage?
Yes, I do. I know what it is, but no one's paying me to talk. Oh wait,
I think
they already do. So
I think you'd be worth about the same as LeVar Ball, $200 for 30 seconds.
I'll take it. LeVar Ball, man, that's worth it. No, so I mean, listen, there's some great stuff there, right? So listen, I like Ray. I'm feeling lucky with Ray. Ray, so we haven't done this, right? We haven't done this with our guests, but we're gonna do it. Adam Lefko came up with this idea, right? He came up with an idea called the cage match, and he wants me to ask a guest a question, and it's just like an off the wall question. I'll have to come up with it if you say yes.
All right,
but I have
go.
to ask you: do you want to go into the cage with Cage? You want to do the cage match? If you say no, it's no big deal. We move on to the next question, right? If you want to get in the cage, you get in the cage, and I'll ask the cage match question. You want to get in the cage?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you two cage questions. I'm going to have to come up with them off the top of my head. One, who wins in a fight, Bruce Lee or Jet Li?
Actually, not too familiar with that. I would say Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee wins in a fight.
Not Ray Lee? Not Raymond Lee? How long would you last?
I think I would. It'd be easy.
Yeah, not that long. Okay, so here's the other one. This is the biggest question I have for you, okay? Because I have no idea how you came up with it. It's literally the thing I need to know more than anything in the world. It's very original. How did you come up with your name? How did you come up with Asian Cards?
Yeah, I think I wanted something that caught people's attention, and that was the first thing that came to mind. I think that one thing that I noticed when going to sports cards shows was that there weren't a lot of Asian people there. So I think, being the only Asian person in the room, having a memorable name that be like, oh, you're Asian Cards, right? That is, I think that was, originally it was just a way to stand out.
All right, I like it. There you go. A successful entrance to the cage. We will let you out of the cage. 2 questions answered. Not that bad. I was all right. You've been good. You've been a good guest. So I don't want to be too hard on you.
I'm ready for round 3 if you have any more.
Nice.
Or anytime you just text me. We'll keep it going.
I have one, and this is a little bit personal for me, and I don't think I'm the only one in this boat. Dogecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto, NBA Top Shot, vintage is exploding, modern is dipping. I'm an investor. I just started in August of 2020. I'm just want to get into sports cards. Ray, help me out, man. I feel so lost in this market. I feel like I'm always chasing my tail. What do I look at, man? What do I do? Give me some investment advice.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking, I guess kind of depends on your needs, right? Like whether or not you want something that's high growth, like a penny stock, or something that's more stable, like an Amazon. right, or a Microsoft. So I guess it depends on your needs. I would say like overall, if you don't really know what you're doing and you're completely new, I would say a lot of these like fractional ownership companies are the way to go. Collectible is a big one. I spoke with Ezra Collectible last week. Heard a lot of good things about the company. I think a lot of these. So I think what is kind of unintuitive about the sports cards market is that a lot of the cards that grow in price by a large percent tend to be very, very expensive cards. Like for example, a $2 million card will grow at a higher percent than something that is, $100 or $200, which is pretty unintuitive. Think about it. And like these fractional ownership companies give you an opportunity to invest in those cards. Granted, you don't get to own the physical asset. If you really want to have physical asset of the card, like buy a card yourself, right? Obviously, that's I think that's really important. But if you're just kind of like looking at a way of like diversifying the portfolio, I think these fractional ownership companies are the way to go.
Two things. So what it means by the unintuitive, and you're absolutely right, is traditional stock market and investing, you buy something that's higher risk, higher reward, and then you buy like an Amazon or an Apple that's going to be safe, but it's not going to grow by the same percentage typically that a penny stock would. So Apple might be up 3-4% on a day where a penny stock is up 10, 20, 30. However, with sports cards, what Ray is saying is oftentimes these base modern cards, even though it seems like they've exploded, actually are higher risk, lower reward than a Michael Jordan Fleer, as we've seen. Do you think that continues, that trend continues?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think one aspect of that is also like the cards that are very, very expensive. Say, for example, a 1986 Fleer Jordan or, Jordan XRC or something. In gem mint condition, the supply is pretty much fixed. Like people aren't ripping 1986 Fleer packs like they did back in the day. The cards that come out of those packs are probably jacked up. So you're probably not going to get a PSA. Almost definitely not going to get a PSA 10. So if you think about it, the supply of those cards effectively fixed, not going to change. Like I'm not sure. Like you can't really see when the last PSA 10 Fleer Jordan was created, but like I don't think it happened anytime soon, just because old cards are so hard to grade.
All right, let's wrap with this, Ray. And before I let you go, can you just let people know where they could find you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me in the Asian Cards Facebook group. Just type in Asian Cards in the Facebook search bar, or you can find me on Instagram at Asian Cards. It's one word.
I love it. So you mentioned this a few times, but the way I see sports cards is people have a demand for alternate investments. Okay, they're losing some trust in the dollar. There's inflation, all these things that have been readily publicized. We talked about a ton, and people are looking at alternative investments like cryptocurrency, sports cards, coins, collectibles, other things like artwork and digital art. But I want to talk about crypto because you mentioned it's a store of value. But I think for a lot of people, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the way down the line, it seems confusing. But you have a financial background, Why do you think it is confusing, and how do you explain it to people so that they do understand?
Yeah, I actually don't really understand it either. So I guess you could lump me in the crowd that doesn't know too much about kind of like the workings of, I guess, the backbone of crypto, right? I've tried reading like the white papers, and it seems very esoteric to me. But I think like at the end of the day, like these sorts of values are based on trust, right? And then you kind of you get to a point where it's like people start to trust. Initially you didn't see that with sports cards. People were like, oh, why would I buy a piece of paper for this much if it's in a plastic holder, right? Like people wouldn't trust it. But kind of like the more tests it goes through, you can apply to Bitcoin too, right? Like every time Bitcoin passes a certain threshold, falls down, you see that support, and people trust it a little bit more. And then we're like, okay, can it handle 100 billion in transaction volume, 200 billion, 300 billion? Right? Eventually that number just goes up and up as people become more and more comfortable with it. And I think, starting to happen with Bitcoin. It's probably happening with like other cryptocurrencies as well. I'm not too familiar with the rest of the crypto universe, but yeah.
No, but that's a great point, because
How
there was a
these
day
things work.
where there was a day and time where people would be like, why would I pay more for a card in a holder than just a raw card, right? And then PSA, people started to trust that PSA would grade the cards more accurately, that a 10 should be worth more than a raw card. And you're absolutely right. It's all kind of built on trust. Any questions, any final statements for Luka Nation or myself before I let you go? This was, I think there's a ton of value here. There's a ton of value in this episode.
Nothing left for me. Just want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. Really like I looked at your guys' page before this. Really like the graphic design. So whoever designed that needs a raise.
You mean the Luka Tiger LeBron logo?
Yeah, it's great.
It's actually Cage's daughter made that. So shout out to Leah. She did an amazing job. The creative family there. So
yeah, love it. Well, thanks for having me, Andrew.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lukas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.